Welcome to Dependable Flame, where we explore vintage petrol lighters, ashtrays, tobacconiana, and other useful mechanisms. Make yourself at home. Today we are going to talk about springs, and specifically springs that are required to make a vintage petrol lighter work as it should. Some of these lighters will be fully automatic versions like the Ronson Whirlwind, and you can see that this lighter still looks a little clunky. I believe that part of that is the aftermarket snuffer that already has the gears integrated into the side of it. But we got a comment on the video that we did for repairing this lighter, which was published yesterday. And the first comment was from our friend Friedrich Deal, who stated that we should add another flint to make the lighter more reliable. And then that was seconded a short time later by John Doe, who agreed that in certain lighters of his he has to add a second flint in order to make the lighter more reliable. Now, obviously, I had hopes that this lighter might straighten out, although I did mention toward the end of that video that we may need to end up using some of the parts from the other two identical lighters to end up with hopefully two complete and working lighters, because this one did not appear to be working like it should. But the idea of putting an extra flint in the tube was something that crossed my mind years ago, and I have done on occasion. I don't really mind doing it if it's a lighter that I'm going to be using, but if it's a lighter that I'm going to sell, then telling the buyer to put an extra flint in the tube doesn't seem to me like you're really advertising a lighter that is working as it should. So I have steered clear of that. I've been reluctant to put the extra flint in the tube to see if that would make it light more reliably. Not in this lighter in particular necessarily, just lighters in general. The vast majority of the lighters that you see in these videos are going to be sold in our eBay store, and therefore I need them to work reliably and as they should. Now, we've had these discussions off and on in the comments section of our YouTube videos, and had other discussions in the Facebook lighter groups, Facebook Messenger, and other places. And one thing for me that has always spoken against the idea that a compressed spring is going to lose tension is the reliability or function of semi-automatic lighters such as this ASR. These lighters are typically stored with the spring locked and ready to go, and just need the button actuated in order for that to jump to life and light the lighter. Now, it seems to me that if a compressed spring would lose its tension over time, that the number one candidate for that to happen in would be these semi-automatic push-button type lighters. Not a problem at all with this ASR, nor to an identical ASR that I have. I suppose that the lack or diminished spring tension could possibly be part of the problem that we have had with this Thorn's double claw table lighter. It snaps right open, it produces good spark, and it does light semi-reliably. But maybe you would say, well, if that spring in that lighter or those springs in that lighter were as strong as they should be, or as strong as they originally were, then that Thorn's lighter would be lighting every time. And you may be correct. That very well could be a problem with this lighter. I don't think so, but it is possible. I did put an extra flint in this Nordad lighter. I've got a handful of aluminum block lighters that we could experiment with in this regard, as they either have weak file wheels, weak springs, springs that are too short. For whatever reason, they do not provide the spark necessary to ignite a lighter on a consistent basis. Now, when I installed the extra flint in this lighter, it lit up almost immediately. I think it was the second or third turn of the wheel after I had put the extra flint in there that this lighter lit. And I can't really say that this Nordad lighter had ever lit for me by just striking the file wheel. So that seemed like an improvement, but as you can see here now, with two flints in there, this lighter still isn't operating any more reliably than it ever has. Now, something else that I would like to discuss here, and I should have talked about it a little bit earlier, it's one of the reasons why I keep as many spare springs around as I can, is that you are going to need replacement springs at times. There are times that you will break a plastic flint spring screw, and of course you can just pull that out and replace it with a different screw. That's good reason to keep any spare flint springs around that you have encountered. Something else that happens to springs is they get twisted up and become no good. I think this happens sometimes when you've got a flint spring that is actually a little bit too long. For whatever reason, it all gets bunched up in there. Maybe it is also springs that are weak, made out of inferior metal, or just gotten weak over time. That's possible. But something that I have also done in the past, rather than adding an extra flint, is to give the flint spring a little stretch. Now, I'm not going to stretch any of these because I may need them for another lighter. That's why I have kept them. And just going to put that all back there for now. But what we're going to do is add an extra flint to this Ronson Whirlwind, and as you can see, it just isn't sparking reliably at all. Every now and then you'll get a little burst. So let's pull the flint spring and screw. Let's add an extra flint in behind the one that's already in there, which should increase our tension by about 1/8 of an inch, maybe a quarter, somewhere in that neighborhood, I think. Groove our flint before we get that tightened on down. If you have to, you can always lift the snuffer and groove it by lifting the snuffer as you push the plunger, and then that should ease up after a moment. We're definitely getting some better sparks there, but we still need to tighten our screw on down. So as I was saying earlier, I've been reluctant to put in two flints simply because I don't want to advertise on eBay or my website or anywhere else that I advertise my lighters that you have to put two flints in it for it to work. That doesn't really sound like it's working as it should. Stretching a spring a little bit, that would perhaps be a little bit questionable It all depends on how reliably the lighter works after that spring is stretched a little bit. But in any case, I would say that if you're going to stretch the spring in a lighter like that, it's probably something that should be disclosed when you list the lighter for sale. Even that would not be in original condition, functional condition as the lighter was intended to. And perhaps that spring had lost some length, being compressed over time, so it had lost some of the space that it had to create that tension. Just have to see. I'd say that would probably be on a case-by-case basis. Nice, solid spark there, lit right up. Good spark on that one. So you can see here that with the second flint installed, it is definitely lighting more reliably than it was. But we also now have the mechanism seized up again, and we'll have to basically groove our flint again. So that second flint has made our plunger a little bit stiff. It's pretty good pressure against it. And you can also see that the mechanism is still a little bit sloppy. It's lit way more reliably here with the second flint in it. But you can also see that that snuffer is at times not coming up all the way to 90 degrees, which I believe it should. And I would say that that is because of the sloppiness that is in those gears that are mounted in the side of the snuffer. But basically what I wanted to talk about in this video was springs, flint springs, all kinds of springs that are required to make semi-automatic lighter mechanisms work, and what you guys think is appropriate. If you were to buy a lighter that seemed to be working fine and then find two flints in it, would you still feel like that lighter was working as it should? Is that a dependable, reliable lighter if you have to put two flints in it to get it to work? And also, what about stretching of a spring? If you bought a lighter that worked great and then a few months in it quits working as reliably as it was when you got it, you ask the seller about it and they say, well, yeah, just give that flint spring another stretch and it'll start working good again. Does that mean that lighter is working reliably and well as it should? Leave a comment down below. I would love to hear what you guys think. And if there are any other experiments that we should attempt. As I'm sitting here, I think that flew back there off of the file wheel as I actuated that mechanism the last time. You can also see again that this mechanism is still somewhat clunky, and perhaps even caused to be clunky in a little bit different manner because of the stiffness that the two flints installed in there are causing. So again, this lighter may be working better, but it's still not a reliable, functional lighter. So I don't really know if adding a flint will solve problems in this regard, but I would love to hear what you guys think about the topic. Until next time.